what's up, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode of Forever Power 5. I'm Nick DiMartino. That's Anthony Balester. And we are, this is episode 4, following a wild week 3 of the college football season. Of course, follow us across social media at FP5ETB on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick DiMar, Anthony at Balester555. Same thing on Instagram. You can follow this show, and you also follow Zan on Twitter and Instagram at ZanBando99. You can follow this show and all Empty the Bench shows on YouTube.com/ETB Network. You can listen to this show and all Empty the Bench shows at ETBpodcast.com. And you can listen to Forever Power 5 wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, this show, Forever Power 5, is presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, prepping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the community, with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB Network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. All right. So the story, I would say, right now is Colorado beats Colorado State. To be quite honest with you, I never thought we would lead a show with Colorado State. You were right about this game. I was wrong. Colorado was much better. I don't even know if the reason they were so much better was because of Colorado. It may have 90% just been Colorado State, and I thought they were better than they really were. But Shedeur Sanders refused to shake Braden Fowler Nicolosi's hand after the game. To me, it sounds like a very Colorado thing. It sounds like something his dad would do a lot, as a head coach. It's just a very Deion Sanders type of thing. I don't know what he actually said about Shedeur Sanders. I mean, you told me a few minutes before we started the show, kind of what he said, along the lines of what he said. But I don't know, exactly the context or what it was that offended him so much, which is why it's hard for me to take a position. I can't tell if Shedeur Sanders is being overly sensitive, especially when he ended up winning anyway. Or if he said something that was really legitimately offensive, that would understandably offend him. I'm not exactly like I said, apparently it had something to do with Instagram followers or something like that. I don't know. The idea of Colorado State, of a Colorado State quarterback talking shit sounds kind of silly, but crazier things have happened. So I don't really know the full context of what he said, or if it was really remotely malicious at all. It's just kind of hard to say. I don't know. It's a little weird.
Yeah, it's definitely an odd situation. But I don't blame Shedeur Sanders, one bit. Obviously, if you're going to talk about it, you have to be about it. And, Colorado State, quarterback wanted to go out into the media and prove a point. Obviously, everybody knows that Colorado is the most talked about team. Everybody knows Shedeur Sanders, whether if he's the best player in college football or not. Him and Travis Hunter in Colorado are the face of college football. Obviously, they have the most followers on Instagram for a reason. Shedeur Sanders is probably up there with the top NIL. So, it makes sense. But for you to go out there and basically say, yeah, they're not going to get you wins, I can understand why Shedeur Sanders gets upset, because that kind of diminishes how great of a player he is and how great of a team Colorado can be. We know how great Travis Hunter is, and we know how good Shedeur Sanders is. And I understand that they do got a large, following, but they are great players. They do train hard, and their lives are about football. Yeah, it may not seem like that, and it may seem like Shedeur is like this rich kid that has had everything handed to him, but he's earned a lot of it as well. He's played really, really well, given, the circumstances and not having a great offensive line. And, he still makes do. He had a great game. And like I said before, leading up to this game, I thought Colorado was going to have something to prove. Travis Hunter was unbelievable on both ends of the field. he was getting interceptions while also catching passes on the offensive end. I mean, the guy's unbelievable. He's literally one of the best receivers and best cornerbacks. And how do you stop that? So, like I said, I knew that they were going to be highly motivated. And, Shedeur Sanders did sit there and shake all the hands of the other people. He shook other players' hands. He shook coaches' hands. So it wasn't like he was just trying to dismiss and disrespect Colorado State as a program. He was just upset and took it personal by what the Colorado State quarterback said. And I think that's understandable.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I don't. The only reason I don't really take a position on this is because, first of all, I don't care about feuds between college kids. Second of all, the whole thing is just petty. Second of all, I would say I'm not exactly sure what he said. I have a general idea of what he said, and I don't know if it seemed malicious or innocent. Neither of those things would surprise me if it was either malicious or innocent.
And my question for you, Nick, I think the reason why this is blowing up into such a big story is because we know Shedeur Sanders is trying to play in the NFL. So a lot of people are bringing this up saying, does this hurt his NFL draft stock? Is this a guy that teams want to invest millions of dollars in, to make them the CEO of their franchise? I mean, my question for you, Nick, does this something like this affect you if you're an NFL team trying to draft Shedeur Sanders?
No. We'll forget about it in 2 weeks. Him refusing to shake it. I mean, we're going to forget about it. I mean, I don't think silly things like this affect draft stocks even late in the season. I think how Shedeur Sanders actually plays affects his draft stock. I don't even think Colorado's success affects Shedeur Sanders' draft stock all that much. It's really more about how good he is individually. And so, no, absolutely not. I don't think. I mean, to be honest, I haven't even heard anybody suggest that. But, I mean, I don't know how good Shedeur Sanders is. I mean, I think the reason this is a big story is because it involves Deion Sanders and his son, Shedeur Sanders, one step away from his dad, basically. That's the reason this is a big story, because everything involving Deion Sanders in Colorado right now seems to be a very big story. Like I said, Colorado used to be like the Chicago White Sox of college football 2 years ago. They were not a story almost ever. Now Colorado is a story because of Deion Sanders. And I'd say, I mean, they're not a playoff team. They may make a bowl game, which is, I guess, a step in the right direction. Their record against Power 5 teams, or now Power 4 teams, is abysmal. Although last year they were able to keep a lot of games close. But right now they have 2 stars, really, Travis Hunt, or 2 or 3, if you count Jimmy Horn. Travis Hunter is just incredible, obviously. I mean, he's just amazing on both sides of the ball. But, football is not basketball. Having Travis Hunter is not going to make you. It's not like basketball teams. It's not like a team like the Cavs with LeBron or something like that. It's not like that in college, in football at all. Just the nature of the sport is different. Travis Hunter can be great, but that doesn't mean Colorado is going to have a good season. I mean, if anything, it seems like they play Travis Hunter too much. If anything.
I definitely think he definitely plays snap to snap. I mean, it's crazy, Nick. I'm watching the Colorado State game, and Travis Hunter catches the touchdown. The thing is, he can't even go to the sideline and cheer about the touchdown because he immediately has to go to the defensive coordinator, and the defensive coordinator has let him know what they're about to do on defense. So he literally can't even celebrate what he does on offense or defense because he's immediately got to start preparing for the next drive. So I do think when he gets to the NFL, when he's going up against grown men that are much bigger and faster, he's definitely going to, I think, have to play one position, maybe part-time, and one position full-time. I don't think he's going to be able to do what he's doing in the NFL like this, but he is a versatile player, and he is something that we really haven't seen before. And, obviously, there is 11 men on the field, and obviously, like you said, it's not like basketball, and you do need more of a whole team, and it takes more than just one player to dominate. But in Travis Hunter's case, he definitely affects the game more than just a normal player because he can play both sides. And in Colorado's case, where they don't have much depth, but they do got these star players like Shedeur at the quarterback position, which obviously having a quarterback is the most valuable thing, and then have a Travis Hunter at wide receiver to be the number one target for that quarterback, while also being able to shut down the opposing team's top receiver, that is super, super valuable. But honestly, Nick, when it comes to how this affects Shedeur, obviously, yeah, in my opinion, I don't think it affects him at all. I still think he's a great quarterback. I still think ultimately he's going to be a guaranteed, probably unless if he gets hurt or the season goes disastrous, he should be a first-round pick. So I don't think it's going to affect him at all. I think what it is, Nick, I think the people who already have a negative opinion on Shedeur Sanders, who already have a problem with his attitude, this is just another thing that they could add to that to kind of further their argument. But I still like Shedeur, and in my opinion, it doesn't change what I think of him either.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I don't have particularly strong opinions about it. Now, it just seems like a very Colorado thing. And a lot of college quarterbacks, I think most college quarterbacks are – now, this is not just a criticism. This is not really a criticism of Shedeur Sanders. It's just an observation. I think that, like, most college quarterbacks, including the really, really good ones, probably would not have responded, like, at all. I think because most college quarterbacks just want to lay low and do their thing and not really, especially after a win. Like, that's my attitude too. Like, I'm happy about a win. Am I really going to care about it in that moment that much? I mean, that's probably what most college quarterbacks would think. So it's a little bit out of the ordinary. Like, Shedeur Sanders does say a lot of things that most college quarterbacks would not say. And obviously it has something to do with the celebrity, like, him being Deion Sanders' son, obviously, and him being in the limelight. And, I'm sure his dad influences him a lot. And I mean, just something like him sort of throwing his offensive lineman under the bus, which I understood a little bit given the context, but normally that would not happen, including in the NFL. Normally, like, even if it's fully justified, even if your offensive line sucks, and we've seen some bad offensive lines, and Colorado's is bad, normally the quarterbacks aren't willing to admit it. Like, that's just
you can't do that in the NFL. Like, it don't matter. Like, as a Buffalo Bills fan, I've seen plenty of games where literally the offensive line of the team let Josh Allen down, and he still takes the blame because that's what the quarterback's supposed to do, and that's what makes your teammates actually play better. By you putting your offensive line down, they're not going to want to block for you as much. You take the blame, and they know that they're the ones that messed up. They'll be willing to die for you in that next game. And that's the type of mentality you have to have. And hopefully Shedeur Sanders obviously won't, be doing this when he gets to the NFL.
Yeah. So I do want to talk about this. LSU wins a shootout versus South Carolina in a game that they absolutely should not have won. This really was a very lucky win for LSU. Hey, a win's a win. They were able to figure it out, but LSU should not have won this game. This was not a very good performance by LSU. South Carolina, the whole first half, South Carolina looked like the superior team. I would say that moment when, I don't know how much of this game you watched, that moment when Lenora Sellers took the quarterback at South Carolina, took a sack and got injured on that play, that killed him. First of all, you can't take a sack on that play because they knocked them out of field goal range. Second of all, it obviously injured the quarterback. And for the second half, they had to bring in Robbie Ashford. I mean, Lenora Sellers played a good game. Nussmeier played a pretty good game too. In the first half, Lenora Sellers definitely did play a good game. The problem with South Carolina was that Robbie Ashford is their backup. What do we know about Robbie Ashford? He doesn't throw, which is a problem because that's kind of what quarterbacks do. They throw. It's that's going to be a problem when your quarterback doesn't throw. He threw the ball 4 times the whole game. I don't know what they think is going to – I mean, it was a similar type of thing at Auburn when he played at Auburn. Like, he didn't throw a lot. So
yeah, I've never been a fan of Robbie Ashford either.
Yeah, LSU got pretty lucky to win that game. They were very fortunate.
Yeah, that was definitely a changing point. Lenora Sellers was definitely doing really well, particularly on the ground. And once he obviously got hurt, I know he tried to come back in the game for a series, but he wasn't the same quarterback. He wasn't really able to use his legs or athleticism, and he did play a good game. One play that definitely changed it that I was really upset about that I think the referees got wrong was there was a pick six that got called back for a penalty on hitting the quarterback. Now, what makes that penalty so upsetting is Garrett Nussmeier throws the interception. The guy got the ball and he's trying to run and score a touchdown. Garrett Nussmeier is trying to make a play to try to tackle the defender. Kennard, the defender for South Carolina, all he does is go and push Nussmeier because that's what you're supposed to do. If you're trying to make a tackle and after you already throw the interception, you're no longer a quarterback. And all he did was push him to the ground to try to block his teammate, and you're going to call roughing the passer unnecessary roughness, which still gave him the interception but took away the touchdown. Now, I don't understand how you could call that. No, I know there was a lot of bad calls throughout all college football this weekend, but that one really changed the game. I mean, you go from the difference of having a pick six to just having an interception. I mean, that's points off the board. And I don't understand how you could call roughing the quarterback when the quarterback's trying to make a tackle on the guy who intercepted the ball. Like I said, he's no longer a quarterback. And all the guy did was push him to the ground. So I was really upset by that call. LSU definitely got lucky. South Carolina gave them everything that they could handle. South Carolina should have ultimately, won the game. There was a lot of things that had to go LSU's way for them to win it. It ultimately did. So thank God for LSU. And Brian Kelly had to be a little happy because he finally got to say his team finished the game once and didn't lose a close one in the fourth quarter. But yeah, this should have been South Carolina's game, and I'm upset for all of Gamecock fans.
I mean, it didn't feel like it didn't feel like LSU was going to win most of that game. It didn't feel like it. There was just some really abysmal decision making throughout the game. I just didn't think it was going to happen. As far as that call, I mean, I don't know. I mean, at first I thought it was absolutely the right call, that it was roughing the passer. The thing is, when a quarterback throws an interception, there is a lot of gray area when it comes to, are you a defender or are you a quarterback? If it's immediately after you throw a pass, yeah, it's gray area. I mean, at what point do you go from being a passer to being a defender? Is it like right after
I think it's when you start trying to run and make a play on the ball. I mean, if the quarterback's just standing there, then maybe he can still be a quarterback. But if he sits there and he's trying to run and try to get to the defender, then he's no longer a quarterback, in my opinion.
That's a fair point. I mean, I guess it depends on. I guess, yeah, that's true. I guess it kind of depends on what. Yeah, because at some point the quarterback goes from being a defender to being a passer to being a defender. It also had nothing to do with the play, which obviously sucks for South Carolina. Now, I'm not saying that just because it has nothing to do with the play doesn't mean it shouldn't be called back. I mean, if it's the right call, it's the right call. But that obviously just makes this controversy a lot worse because they ended up missing the field goal at the end to tie the game. So it was just this was just a total disaster for South Carolina. And I mean, I will say South Carolina isn't all that bad. They're not a bad team. Like, I'm not going to criticize LSU for beating South Carolina. They're the same team that just destroyed Kentucky. So they're no slouch, obviously. But it was also their backup quarterback who couldn't throw at all. If Lenore Sellers stays in the game, there's no way LSU loses. There's no way LSU wins.
I really think you're right. South Carolina is a really good team. They just got a lot of really young players that are, sophomores, or freshmen or, third-year sophomores. And, I think they're going to be a team that's going to be, to reckon with and have to be respected. Definitely next year when these players develop. And you're seeing that development now from Lenore Sellers and some of these other guys. They got a lot of young pass rush. You see, like I just said, Kennard, he had a couple bad penalties, but overall he had a good game. And this team is just loaded with great young players. And I think South Carolina will continue to get better. And, even though it was a close win for LSU, any SEC win should be, I guess, except for if it gets Vanderbilt. Besides, unless if you're playing Vanderbilt, any SEC win is definitely an impressive win. And I think South Carolina is a team that needs to be respected. But they definitely should have won this game. There were some other penalties in LSU's defense that are unexcusable for South Carolina as well. But man, this was definitely one of the best games of the weekend.
Yeah, I'd say it probably was. I'd say it probably was. Yeah, I'm rewatching the. I'm just saying I'm rewatching the pick six and the roughing the passer call. I just want. I want to take a look. I watched it, but I want to take a look at it again. So here it is. All right, here it is. So I'm. Oh my God, this sucks. All right, here it is. Hold on. Yeah, he turned into a runner. He really did run. He wasn't just standing there. He
That's
did
what I'm
run.
saying.
Like it didn't look like it. Like if he was still standing there right after he threw a pass, okay, then he's still a passer. But once you turn and run, you're probably fair game. Like that. That's a. I mean, it's obviously a little bit of a gray area. I mean, refs often suck in college. It's all. I mean, the truth is, refs suck in general. They're people. Like they're not that good. They're not machines. So I don't know. I mean, LSU is still a middle of the road they're a borderline playoff team, middle of the road SEC team. But this could be a pretty big deal. It might not be. Who knows? They might not be a top 12 team anyway. So Florida State loses to Memphis 20-12. 0-3 Florida State. Florida State sucks. They are terrible. Florida State. I mean, we sound like broken records. Like there's almost nothing to say about this. I mean, like there's really just neither of us are Florida State fans. And there's really nothing to say about Florida State other than they dropped the ball. I don't know if Mike Norvell, like there's almost no way he makes it to Thanksgiving. He'll be unemployed by Thanksgiving. I mean, he'll get a nice big payout, but you know, he'll be unemployed by Thanksgiving almost certainly. There's no way he finishes the season. Mike Norvell is all I can say. By the way, they're the first team to clinch the under on games won. Isn't that they're the team to clinch the first team to clinch the under. Their over under for wins was 9.5. They can only win 9 now. That's pretty unbelievable. That they're the first team. So I wish I had a Florida State under bet. I never thought that would win in September. Florida State already can't hit the over.
Yeah, and with Mike Norvell, you know, I'm not sure, you know, if this has probably happened before. College football is old enough, but would Mike Norvell be the first coach ever to go 13-0 in one season, and then they get fired halfway through this, literally the season after that? That would be absolutely insane. You know, to think about, you know, where they came from just literally, you know, 7-8 months ago to where they are now, you know, is astounding. You know, honestly, you know, for Florida State, you know, what's so crippling is their defense played better in this matchup. You know, Memphis does have a talented offense. You know, Seth Hennigan is a really good quarterback. He might even be drafted in the NFL as a late round draft pick. So he can play. Memphis always has some good running backs and some good receivers. So Florida State's defense played pretty good. You know, Joshua Farmer, Patrick, you know, their secondary made some good plays. So I thought they improved. But, man, their offense just continues to be their Achilles heel. And, you know, like I said, we thought DJ Uiagalelei, you know, not be a great quarterback, but at least be serviceable. You know, he's hurting the team so bad that I think they have to bench him. I mean, you can't get any worse than this. I mean, it's really gone downhill for him. I mean, he looked like he was making strides last season when he was at Oregon State, but this is the worst DJ Uiagalelei has ever looked. And I think at this point, he's a backup quarterback at the Power 4 conference level at best.
Yeah, I mean, his you know what his QBR was? 33.6.
Yeah, that's insane.
So, like, if you look at his numbers, they're just not good. I think that this Florida State to me seems a lot like. To me, it doesn't really tell me much about Mike Norvell or Florida State or really anybody. What it tells you a lot about, I would say, is the transfer portal and how, you know, just players transferring can make such a big difference. It's like, you know, losing and gaining players in 1 year makes a huge difference. I feel like this drastic level of, I feel like this type of drastic drop is very much indicative of the transfer portal, because you get a bunch of players 1 year and then they all leave. And then you just end up with a much better or worse team. So there's just a very like how good the team is just fluctuates so much. I mean, look, as much as we can blame Mike Norvell for the season going bad, you also have to give him credit for the season going good last year, for sure. Like, but the thing is, in college football, even within a season, everything is short-term memory. Like, what happens in September, 2 months from now, we're gonna forget about a lot of it. And it's the similar thing season to season. It's like, does it really matter that Florida State went undefeated last year? It was was arguably the best team when Jordan Travis played. I mean, Ed Ogeron was fired the year after LSU won. And not only did they win, they had a historic season. They were arguably the best college football team in history. They were the best college football team I ever saw. And the year after, Ed Orgeron got fired. So crazier. I mean, Mike Norvell getting fired isn't that crazy to me, especially with how bad they've been.
Yeah, it's just like, it does feel bad for him because at the end of the day, I feel like it's like you said, it's not 100% his fault. But I feel like his quarterback, like you said, the difference between Jordan Travis to DJ Uiagalelei is all the difference in the world right now for this team. And for Mike Norvell, it is upsetting because I do think he's a great coach. I do think if he gets fired, if he wants to go right back in coaching, he probably will get another decent head coaching job next year. But it's definitely going to be tough. And, college football definitely fires coaches, sooner rather than later. And that's just how it works. But I do feel bad. But maybe, it's gotten to the point where, I'm not there in the locker room. But if Mike Norvell has lost their locker room and they have completely lost faith in him, then obviously you do have to move on. I know you were saying that you don't think he's probably going to make it past Thanksgiving. But obviously, you just said college football can change. Maybe if you get a couple wins together, maybe. But I don't know if you could, fix what this is going on with this team. I don't think this team can be fixed this year. But it is unfortunate for Mike Norvell because I do think he can coach. And I do think he probably will do good at a different job if they do decide to move on.
To be honest, I don't even know if he'll make it to Halloween. He might not even make it then. Well, if you look at their schedule, I mean, first of all, imagine if I told you, I mean, if Florida State, I mean, they're looking at their schedule, their first 3 games, they're like, yeah, we're going to go 3-0. They probably wouldn't even think of it. Like, all of us probably thought the same thing. Georgia Tech, Boston College, Memphis. Yeah, 3-0. That's easy. Not to mention Cal. You would think Cal's an easy game. Well, Florida State's playing at home. They're only 2.5-point favorites. That's pretty telling. But looking at their schedule, there's no way they make a bowl game. There's no way they even make a bowl game. I mean, they have to play. First of all, like I said, they're going to have to get past Cal at home. Cal is actually pretty good this year.
Undefeated so far.
They have to play Clemson at home, but still Clemson, Miami on the road, and Notre Dame, and that doesn't even and Notre Dame on the road, and that doesn't even include Duke on the road. And Duke is 3-0. I feel like there is no way Florida State even makes a bowl game. They probably won't even. Not to mention North Carolina at home. They'll win some of those games. I mean, maybe they can beat Florida the last game of the year. But it's like their schedule, based on the way they've been playing and the fact that they have 3 losses, is a gauntlet, I would say, based on the way they've been playing, especially going on the road, going on the road at Miami and going on the road at Notre Dame and even playing home against Clemson. I mean, best case scenario, it seems like they go 6-6. They don't even make a bowl game. And you know what? There is no way with the expectations of Florida State this year that they're going to live with them not making a bowl game. The head coach will be fired. There's just no other way to put it based on the way they've been playing, especially when you lose the first 3 weeks. It's not like they didn't just lose to Georgia Tech and they bounced back. Like, it's not that. They lost 3 of those games in a row that normally they wouldn't even think about. All right, so let's do. All right, so I do want to talk a little bit about Michigan and Arkansas State. Michigan, I mean, I will say they struggled against Arkansas State a little. I mean, I don't know if I call it struggling. Like, the score doesn't exactly do it justice. They were up 28-3 at one point, and the Arkansas touchdowns were a little bit like kind of garbage time in a way. To me, I think it's very telling that with Michigan because of their quarterback controversy. They ended up benching Davis Warren and putting in Alex Orji. It's not a good type of quarterback controversy either. So I think this could end up being really bad for Michigan. They're in a tough conference. Davis Warren threw 3 interceptions, and that against Arkansas State, which obviously is going to be a bit of a problem.
Yeah, I said that coming into the season that I didn't trust Michigan at all because of their quarterback position. And now they're going to start Alex Orji going forward. So they're going to go with a complete, running system. They're going to have a running quarterback. They're probably going to do, a lot of read options. Try to do some play action. But right now they have no receivers at all. They got Colston Loveland, who's a really good tight end, but pretty much nothing outside of that. Their running backs aren't too bad. I thought Donovan Edwards and the other backs stepped up and played better. But at the end of the day, the quarterback's definitely going to hurt them. And, Michigan's got a lot of tough games. In these tough, close games, like the one that they have coming up this week, they're going to have a tough time with the quarterback position. And I'm not sure if, with a, read option running quarterback, how far they could go. Obviously, they do got, a good defense with Will Johnson, the best cornerback in football, but they don't really have another good cornerback on the other side of them. So, they have some good defensive players, but they don't have the depth that they had on defense a year ago. So, obviously, that's hurting them defensively. And obviously, the quarterback and the receivers are hurting them offensively. So, this is nowhere near the team that they had last year. Obviously, they did win this game. But when they start playing the big boys, they're going to struggle. And this could be a long season for Michigan, after what they just had, the success they have with Harbaugh the seasons before.
Yeah, well, I mean, Michigan, look, it's going to be growing pains because Harbaugh just left. The whole season is just a massive growing pain. That's basically what it is. It seems like it doesn't seem like they're a playoff team. They're a lot worse than they were last year. And the biggest reason I would say is the quarterback thing. It's also just, Michigan's always been a team of like schematics. They've been a team that can win sort of modestly. They don't normally have they're not normally the most talented team, but they were able to win with good defense and dominating the line of scrimmage and all that. And it doesn't look like they can do that right now this season. It just looks pretty bad for them. But like the biggest reason is the whole quarterback controversy. And it's like I said, there are such things as good quarterback controversies when you have two really good quarterbacks. We've seen it with Alabama, we've seen it with Ohio State, where the backup quarterback gets brought in and he's really good. But in this case, they're benching the starter and they're replacing him with Alex Orji, who really doesn't even throw; he just runs. And it's bad when you want to replace a quarterback who throws with a quarterback who doesn't. That's obviously going to be a problem because, quarterbacks, they're kind of supposed to throw. And Alex Orji doesn't seem to be throwing very much. So it's going to be a big problem. I feel like there's no way they make the playoffs this year. There's no way. Actually, at the start of the season, if you look at the ESPN app, they show odds, and Michigan against USC they were 9.5 point favorites, Michigan. Obviously, that's not the case anymore. They haven't looked good. Like I said, it's not fair to say that it's not like Arkansas State almost beat them, but it's just that they didn't look good that whole game, Michigan.
Yeah, they didn't look like the same Michigan team that we once, knew. But like you said, obviously, this was expected, with, Jim Harbaugh leaving. Yeah, I don't think they're going to be a playoff team either. In my opinion, I think they're probably going to be an 8 to 9 win team. They'll probably obviously still finish the season ranked in the top 25. They'll be in the upper echelon of the Big Ten, somewhere in probably the top 5, top 6, probably of that, conference. But I see probably 9 wins at most for this team, probably 8 wins right now.
Yeah, I would say 8 or 9 probably, but probably not a playoff team. Yeah, maybe not. I would say probably. Well, they have to play USC they have to play USC this week. They have to play, and they already lost to Texas, and they have to play Ohio State. Those are 2 probable losses. So best case scenario, I would say 9-3, and they're probably outside the top 12. I don't think they're doomed for generations or anything like that. But look, when star head coaches like Jim Harbaugh leave, it always leaves some type of a mark, especially with a team like Michigan, where not to mention, the quarterback thing, the whole quarterback, losing JJ McCarthy. That's not only losing Harbaugh, but also losing McCarthy. That's obviously going to be a problem too. And Blake Corum. So not only some of your best players, not only your head coach, but also some of your best players. JJ McCarthy was a decent enough quarterback to win you a national championship. He wasn't amazing, but good enough. You can't say that now with their current quarterback, with their current quarterback situation. So it's good. I feel like it's just going to be a disaster. Michigan's had a lot of clunkers at quarterback. They've had a lot of bad quarterbacks throughout the years. And Davis Warren looks like he's one of them. So here, when I talk about a good quarterback controversy, Texas. Quinn Ewers, he got injured against UTSA. And they brought in Arch Manning, and Arch Manning was impressive. I don't know exactly how to feel because, I mean, the competition wasn't very good for Texas. But Texas now in the AP, not that I care what the AP thinks, but they are the number one team in the country now, Texas. I don't know exactly what the situation is going to be with Quinn Ewers, but it seems like they might just be fine with Arch Manning. They might even do a thing where they use a little bit of both of them. Like they mostly use Quinn Ewers, but then they put in Arch Manning. I don't know exactly how they're going to do it, but Texas looks like they're the team to beat in college football now.
Yeah, and they're going to be good for years to come. We said this before that, they not only are their starters good, but their backups, who are freshmen and sophomores, are good. So this team is, not going to, have to take any step back or go through rebuilds. They're just going to keep loading every year. They're going to be probably like, the Ohio States, and, they're going to be in that upper echelon now because of how they're recruiting and because of what Steve Sarkisian has done with this program. This team is going to be good year in and year out. Obviously, you do need Quinn Ewers back. He's got that experience. I do think they will need him to win the national championship. Arch Manning is going to be a great quarterback one day as well. I think he can be good right now, but I think Quinn Ewers would be the guy they need to win the national championship with. But, man, Arch Manning has all the tools. He's probably more talented than Quinn Ewers because he's got the same arm talent, but he's also got a lot of mobility. I don't know if you saw, Nick, but he was clocked at running almost 21 miles per hour. He was about a little over 20 miles an hour, and it happened to be the same speed as Tyreek Hill was last week.
It was faster.
That's absolutely insane.
It was actually faster. Which, by the way, I can't, I was just saying that, I was talking about the competition. That's something that you can't, chalk up to competition. If you're fast, you're just fast. That I can't say, it was against UTSA. So, obviously, he has a lot of potential. And like I said, this is a good quarterback controversy. I mean, in college football sometimes we see teams with, that just stack up at quarterback. If you look at Ohio State the year they won the national championship, they won. Cardale Jones was their third string quarterback. So crazier things have happened. If you were to tell me Ohio State that year was going to win the national championship with their third string, I think you were crazy. So yeah, crazier things have happened. Obviously, I never thought that I would see Texas be this good again. I never thought Texas, like I said, would be back, would be back to being back. And now they're the team to beat, not only in the SEC, but just in all of college football, it seems like. And I don't know. I mean, they don't even really need to beat Georgia to win the SEC even. Even I would bet they're favorites. I mean, they're playing Georgia at home. But they don't even really need to beat them to be in the SEC championship game. You know who else is back is Oregon. They destroyed Oregon State. I feel stupid for betting on Oregon State. Here's what I'll tell you, whether you're a gambler or not, what I can tell you about gambling is that it teaches you a lot about the games. And what I'll tell you is if a game feels too easy, it probably is. It probably, if it seems like they're begging you to take one side, don't do it, is how I would put it. Because I think we tend to predict the future based on the past, and that's not always how it works. Oregon, they struggle. I think it was ridiculous of me to think that because Oregon struggled in the first few games, that meant they were definitely going to struggle again against Oregon State, even though it made perfect sense to think that Oregon State was going to be able to cover a more than 2 touchdown spread.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like that. I think we were all on the same page with that last week. But Oregon, their offensive line got healthy, and they look like exactly how we thought they would. Obviously, Dylan Gabriel has been phenomenal in all these games, but now the rest of the team around them is playing good. The defense is solid. The running game's solid. They got a lot of great receivers. So Oregon's playing just like we thought. I said last week that, heading into the season, I thought they were in the top tier of being one of the teams that could win the national championship, along with Texas, Ohio State, and others. And then I said, you know what? Maybe they're not in that tier. Maybe they're in that second tier. Well, if they continue to play like this, they're going to put themselves right in that first tier. And like I said, maybe they just needed to gel a little bit. Maybe the offensive line was a little injured at the beginning of the season. It's starting to gel. It's starting to get healthy. And if this team continues to, carry on this way, they're definitely going to give Ohio State and any other team in the Big Ten or in the country for that matter are run for their money. And like you said, Nick, maybe they just play to their competition. Maybe we see this every year. There's always a team in college football to where they barely squeak by the bad teams, but then they beat the good teams. So maybe Oregon is just this team that they're always going to have, close games, and they're just going to play down to their competition. But at the end of the day, when they need to make a play and their team needs to play good and step up, maybe they will. And we'll definitely see as the season goes on. But I'm definitely encouraged by what I've seen from Oregon, and maybe they can get back into that elite tier, upper echelon of college football again.
Well, I mean, we see this. I mean, we also see this with NFL teams, similar types of things. Like for many years, the Seahawks were asleep until Thanksgiving, and then they really turned it on. It's a similar type of thing right now with Oregon. I mean, well, I'm looking at their schedule. Oregon is going to be favored in every single game they play, except at Ohio State. So, and right now in the Big Ten, it looks like it's just going to be Ohio State and Oregon, and then everybody else. They're still a top-tier team, Oregon. I mean, even though they struggled, I would say, in the first two games. But like I said, we see this quite a lot sometimes when teams struggle. Like you said, some teams just sort of play down to their competition at times, even if they're much more talented. Not to mention it's early in the season. Teams take time to develop to a certain extent. Yeah, I mean, Oregon, there's no spread yet for the Oregon-Ohio State game. There'll be slight underdogs against Ohio State probably because I say slight underdogs because they'll be playing at home. But other than that, every other game they play, they're going to be favorites. Other than Ohio State, their next toughest game probably is Michigan on the road. I would guess is probably their next toughest game. So it looks like Oregon could pretty easily go 10-2 or 11-1. No guarantee they're not going to drop. No guarantee they're not going to lose to a team that should be an easier matchup. That does happen a lot. But I think they should cruise to the playoffs, Oregon, assuming the wheels don't fall and barring some type of catastrophic injury to like Dylan Gabriel. But other than that, I mean, assuming everything is okay, they're cruising to the playoffs. It's really, Oregon, Ohio State, and then everybody else. I was like the top tier for the Big Ten this year. And I still haven't gotten used to calling Oregon a Big Ten team. So Georgia struggled against Kentucky. They won 13-12. I feel like this sounds like the score of an Iowa State game. I don't expect this in the SEC. Georgia looked really, really bad. Kentucky actually won the time of possession war with Georgia. Actually, it's one of the worst I've seen Georgia. It's some of the Georgia looked a lot worse. It's obviously the reason they dropped to the 2 spot. I'll say I don't know how much of this is concern about Georgia. Carson Beck has an injury, so Carson Beck is not 100%. For me, I would say, like I said, this could just be similar to Oregon playing down to their competition, and Kentucky tends to play Georgia tough. And most of the SEC, there's not that many easy games. And they're also coming off a really, really bad loss. And like I said, they tend to play Georgia pretty tough.
Yeah, 100%.
And Georgia does have games like this from time to time.
Yeah, 100%. These SEC games could always go either way. Just like we said earlier with LSU and South Carolina. That was a real close game for a reason as well. Kentucky's defense played really, really well. They got a lot of good, players on defense this year. They actually have a linebacker, Joe Johnson, Dumas Johnson coming in, who used to play for Georgia coming in. So they have a former Georgia player playing at linebacker. They got a great defensive tackle in Walker, who's going to be a first-round NFL pick. So Kentucky does have good players on defense. And Georgia's offense was a little off. Like you said, maybe that was because of Carson Beck's injury. But Kentucky always, plays good defense, which they did. But Georgia's defense really, really played good. Obviously, to hold them to just field goals. Georgia's defense was the reason why they won this game. And, it's no surprise, Georgia's defense is the reason why they win a lot of games. So that's not surprising at all. I do think the offense for Georgia will be fine. This was just, a bad week. There was just a lot of things, combining to cause this Carson Beck's injury. Kentucky's defense playing really, really stout. I do think Georgia will be fine. But yeah, it does seem like, Texas probably is the most complete team right now. But I do think Carson Beck and the offense will be fine. But it's going to be interesting to see. Right now, I got Texas slightly ahead of Georgia because of, the fact that Texas is the more complete team. But I'm not too worried about this game. I think it was just a close SEC game, and I think the offense will be fine.
Yeah, I mean, like Georgia played bad, but they still won. It was also, and not to mention they were on the road. Road SEC games are always kind of difficult, although they were 21.5-point favorites. That was like they were heavy favorites. And I mean, Kentucky just won. Kentucky, like I said, they won the time of possession game. Usually, so they kind of I wouldn't say physically dominated, but like they just looked like a better team for most of that game. They were able to control it for most of that game. And Kentucky's quarterback is not very good. Kentucky,
he used to play at Georgia as well. He was actually competing with Carson Beck, and Carson Beck beat out Brock Vandergraaf.
Yeah, exactly. They ran the ball. Kentucky, they ran the ball 45 times. So they were able to control the time on offense quite a lot. To me, like I said, overall, I think we're probably just going to forget about this. But all I can say is you can't play like this against Tennessee or Texas
or Alabama in a couple weeks.
Yeah, so their schedule is too tough. But I guess we could have said the same thing about. I guess we all said the same thing about Oregon. So this sounds like it could be kind of similar.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So Florida 1-2 after losing to Texas A&M 33-20. To me, I don't really care about Florida anymore. They're going to be like a 4 or 5 win team, not making a bowl game. To me, it's really more about Billy Napier and how quickly he's going to be fired. I think we should take bets to see who gets fired first, Billy Napier or Mike Norvell.
I think it'd be a shame if Mike Norvell gets fired first because, at least he had, some success. Billy Napier has done nothing. So, I mean, that'd be pretty messed up if the one coach in Florida gets fired first over Billy Napier. Yeah, Billy Napier, man, he hasn't really had any success. He came in from a group of 5, school. They thought, the success he had at a small school would transfer over to the big school, and it really hasn't. He's supposed to get this offense going, and he hasn't. It seems like obviously whether if it was DJ Lagway, which I know he's a freshman, so I'm not going to, harp on him too bad, but whether if it was him or Graham Mertz, the offense looked bad either way. And this was a game that, I said Texas A&M would win. And I know you did pick Florida, Nick, I believe, and I know Florida's let you down a lot this season. And I know you're not going to pick Florida anymore going forward, but I think Billy Napier's got to go. I said this a couple weeks ago. I think you need to get Billy Napier out of here, have an interim head coach the rest of the year, and let DJ Lagway get some experience, play the rest of the year, and then bring in a better offensive guy next year that can really, really help DJ Lagway flourish. He's the future of the program right now, and I think his success and his future is going to be pivotal because you don't want it to go too haywire and have DJ Lagway decide to hit the transfer portal at the end of the year. So I would get rid of Billy Napier and let DJ Lagway play the rest of the year and let him have his growing pains so that next year you can have a much better year and more success. But Billy Napier's got to go. And, yeah, I've given up on Florida as well.
Well, I mean, my pick was more like I thought Florida and Texas A&M were a little closer. I think I underestimated how bad Florida really is. I think that's what it was that I think I just underestimated it. I guess Florida, I don't know who's going to be worse, Florida or Florida State. Record-wise, probably Florida because their schedule is probably a little tougher. Yeah, Billy Napier, he might not make it to Halloween either. He might not. I would say no way he makes it to Thanksgiving, Billy Napier. Once they have like 6 losses, there's like no way he's going to make it. And like I said, Florida tends to run their coaches out of town pretty quickly. Not to mention the fact that it's not even like Billy Napier had a good season. He didn't. He didn't have one good year. So they're going to want to run him out pretty at some point during this year. That's really the extent of what I care about with Florida because everything about Florida this year is just done. Like the narrative is set. It's all been established. Like they're not even that relevant of a team in the SEC. It's just sort of like, all right, what do they do about Billy Napier and who are they going to bring on next? Missouri, they came back from behind to beat Boston College 27-21. I felt stupid about this bet too. I had Missouri minus 16.5. I should not have. And Bill O'Brien, I guess, came up with a pretty good game plan in the beginning. Kind of like how he came up with a good game plan to beat Florida State. but Missouri's just going to be a little tougher.
Yeah, I can't say too much, Nick. Obviously, I picked Missouri. Missouri is a juggernaut. We said that coming in it. They have a great defense and a great offense. But I think we underestimated Boston College. This is a really good team. I know they don't have a lot of no-name players, but their defense is pretty good. And Thomas Castellanos is a good quarterback. That is a good dual threat. I know, beating Florida State doesn't look too good anymore as the weeks go on. But I do think Boston College is a much better team than we gave them respect for. But I think Missouri was due to have a close game. They were pretty much blowing every team out. So I'm not saying they overlooked them. I mean, at the end of the day, this was a ranked team against another ranked team. So, if you look at it that way, this is the score that you would expect. It's just we thought so highly of Missouri, and I think we underestimated Boston College. They really had a chance to win this game, and ultimately, I think their best player on offense really hurt them at the end. I think Thomas Castellanos was making a lot of bad plays, turned the ball over in the second half, and Missouri really, dominated, as that game went on. I think if that game's played, 10 times, Missouri wins it 9 out of 10 times. We've seen in the fourth quarter who was the better team. And I think, Missouri just had a slow start against a really good, underrated Boston College team. But, I don't think any less of Missouri. I think this was a really impressive win. Honestly, I think it has more to do with what Boston College is than what Missouri isn't. I think Boston College is a real solid team this year. And I think Missouri is a great team this year.
Yeah. Well, you have to remember Missouri's first 2 games, they didn't give up a touchdown. And it was against Murray State and Buffalo. So it's not really proving much. So Boston College in the very beginning of the season was by far their toughest match.
This was their true week 1 game.
Next week they're playing Vanderbilt. And then next week they're playing Vanderbilt. And then 2 weeks after they play A&M, which is when their schedule seems to start getting a little tough, when they start really getting into their SEC schedule. I felt stupid taking Missouri. I think I underestimated Bill O'Brien. Quickly, I want to talk about this. The Pac-2 becomes the Pac. The Pac-2 becomes the Pac-6. They added Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, and San Diego State. I think if anything, it's more accurate to say that the Pac-2 is becoming Mountain West.
Yeah,
they're not joining the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is just becoming the Mountain West. That's 2/3 Mountain West teams. I mean, the question is, I guess the Pac-12 is still alive. To me, the Pac-12 is like the Blockbuster of conferences. Like, we all have a certain sentimental attachment to it, but it's like they're not profitable. We all knew they weren't profitable because 10 of the 12 teams left within a year.
Yeah, and quickly, I'll just say, obviously, they still need 2 more teams. You have to have a minimum of 8 teams to have an official conference. So they are trying to add more teams. There's some rumors out there that maybe they can convince, FCS powerhouse North Dakota State to come in and try to, up, the Pac, which will become the Pac-8, marketability. But honestly, a lot of people are thinking, we're finally going to have forever Power 5. I still think it's going to be the Power 4 conferences, and I think you'll have 6 Group of 5 conferences.
Right, because it's going to be all former Group of 5 teams or currently Group of 5 teams that are going to join the Pac-12. Who else is going to join the Pac-12?
Yeah.
Other than teams that were like in the Mountain West, who else is going to join?
So it's going to become the Group of 6.
Right. But I mean, the flip side is maybe like we would begin to think of those teams as Power 5 teams, but most of them can't really compete with Power 5 teams. Boise State, they can compete with Power 5 teams, as we saw, but like, I don't know about the other teams. Colorado State, San Diego State, Fresno State. I don't know exactly how that's really gonna play out. Like, it's all just gonna be former Power, Group of 5 teams. And by the way, I don't know how long Washington State and Oregon State are gonna stay. They might leave too, for all we know. So
I think they're much better in that conference. West. Yeah, I definitely think they should consider leaving because I think those 2 schools are much better than the schools that they're adding into the conference.
Yeah. So picks for the weekend. One big game, Tennessee at Oklahoma. Oklahoma's giving 7 over under 57.5. I love Tennessee. They're only a touchdown favorite. Oklahoma has not thrown for 200 passing yards so far. I have some concerns about Oklahoma. They struggled a lot against Houston. Tennessee's a much more talented team. This is Nico Iamaleava. if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And if I'm not, I'm at least close. So I'm proud of myself for that. Is a Heisman candidate, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And I think that Tennessee, I mean, they're an offensive juggernaut who now for the first time in a long time actually plays defense. I think Tennessee wins by maybe 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I agree. I got Tennessee in this one big. I think they're going to win by double digits. Nico was amazing. Obviously, he's becoming one of the best quarterbacks in college football, and he's looking like a future top NFL draft pick himself. He could run, he could throw, he could pretty much do it all. But one guy who's also been a really, really good key is Dylan Sampson, the running back. He's been one of the best running backs in all of college football. And I think the combination of those two guys really make this offense go. Obviously they have a lot of fast receivers to go along with it, but their defense is really solid. I said coming into the year, they got James Pierce Jr., who's supposed to be a top 5 NFL draft pick, and he hasn't even really played that good. It's been the other players stepping up. So what's going to happen when Tennessee's best defensive player starts playing good on top of the defense they already have? And with Oklahoma, I love Jackson Arnold. I think he's going to be a good college quarterback as well. But I really don't like Oklahoma's offensive line. Their offensive line has really struggled, and they got some injuries at wide receiver. And I think if you got injuries at wide receiver and if you got a struggling offensive line with a young quarterback, you're not going to do too good against Tennessee. So give me Tennessee by double digits.
Especially with Tennessee's now, I would say, elite defense. Another one, we talked about this a little. USC at Michigan. Michigan's getting 5.5. I love USC this game. I can't believe I'm taking 2 road favorites, but Michigan's quarterback situation right now is a disaster. USC is a much more put together team. It's less than a touchdown. So like USC is not some amazing juggernaut, but they're put together and they can win games like this pretty easily. Michigan, they bench Davis Warren. Their quarterback situation is God knows what, with a rookie head coach, by the way. I don't see Michigan. I mean, Michigan is just so much worse than they were last year. I like USC minus 5.5.
Yeah, I feel like, Nick, that doesn't this seem like the perfect trap game? This feels like, going to the big house at Michigan. It seems like this is the perfect trap game. Everything's going right for USC. Everything's going wrong for Michigan. Not saying it's similar to the Northern Illinois Notre Dame game, but this seems like this could be a trap game. Michigan got blown out, against Texas at home. They do got something to prove. I do think that they'll be improved. They'll have a better offensive scheme. They'll be able to actually, game plan having, Alex Orji at quarterback instead of having to split reps. So they'll have a more, particular game plan for them. So I do think that they'll play better. But USC's defense is much better this year. Obviously, Miller Moss has been lights out at quarterback, and that's going to be the biggest difference in the game is their quarterback difference between Miller Moss and Alex Orji. So I'm going to go USC to cover as well.
All right, and I also like the under this game. I don't normally take over unders, but I like the under this game. Baylor at Colorado minus 1.5. I like Colorado. Baylor is their quarterback situation right now is a total disaster. They're going to be starting the guy DeQuan Finn. He is injured, I think, and Sawyer Robertson is the backup, and that's who they're starting. I don't know how much I can trust this new quarterback, and they're playing at Colorado. Colorado's giving 1.5. I do like Colorado. Even though I don't think Colorado's that good of a team, I do think they should win this.
Yeah, I like Colorado a lot. Obviously, DeQuan Finn, the transfer, he was a great quarterback last year, but now he's hurt. Robinson's coming in. He doesn't make mistakes. He was mistake-free last week. Baylor does have a really stingy defense that obviously can spell disasters for Colorado's offensive line. So I think Baylor's defense and their running game and being able to control the clock and time of possession will keep it close. But, yeah, give me Shedeur Sanders, Colorado, and Travis Hunter in this one.
Yeah, and not to mention Travis Hunter, like if he makes a couple of really good, an interception or just a couple of really good plays, that could really change the trajectory of the game very quickly. And it's against an inexperienced quarterback. So, to me, I really like Colorado. Utah at Oklahoma State, over under 50. Oklahoma State minus 2.5, over under 54. I like Oklahoma State. Though minus 2.5, they're at home, and I'm unsure of the Cameron Rising situation. Like he's playing, but he's not 100%.
Yeah, and I really like this Oklahoma State team. Ollie Gordon's a great running back. They got good receivers. Alan Bowman is a solid quarterback. You got the Cam Rising injury for Utah. But Nick, do you understand how old these quarterbacks are? When was the last time you seen a college football game where you got one quarterback who's 25 and the other quarterback who's 24? I mean, the quarterback age in this game is higher than what we saw on Sunday Night Football between the Houston Texans and the Chicago Bears. I mean, it's absolutely insane. But we'll get a lot of experience. But I do think the Cam Rising injury will hurt. Plus, you're playing on the road, so give me Oklahoma State in this one to cover as well.
Yeah. Also, last game, Miami at South Florida plus 16.5, over under 65.5. I actually like South Florida to cover the 16.5. Just because they tend to play these games very tough. It's nothing against Miami. I think they're very good, but they are going on the road, and a lot of times South Florida just gives these far superior Power 5 teams a run for their money.
Yeah, South Florida always plays them tough. As an Alabama fan, every time I see South Florida on the schedule, I get a little scared. But I think Miami's, firing on all cylinders. I think Cam Ward's going to have another great game, and I don't think, they'll be able to have another good game, and I don't think they'll be able to replicate what they did against Alabama. So I'm going to go Miami to cover in this one.
All right. All right. So that's all our picks, and finally, final segment. Unnecessary wagers, where I make a wager that's very unnecessary. So I made a 7-leg parlay. The under in the USC Michigan game, USC Michigan. The over in the Utah Oklahoma State game. I took Cal plus 2.5. I took the over. I'm sorry. Cal money line. The over in the over points for Tennessee, over 33.5 in the Tennessee Oklahoma game. I took Ole Miss over 6.5 touchdowns against Georgia Southern, and I took LSU over 39.5 and total points, and UCLA under 15.5. UCLA is just a disaster this year. So all right. That's our show today. We'll be back. We'll be back next week. This is Forever Power 5. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick DiMart. You can follow Anthony at Balester555 on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow Zan at Zambando99. And we'll be back next week. Have a good week, everybody.
See ya.